Video going. Hello out there in video land. We got everything going now, Joedy. And I'm going to repeat it again. My name is Paul Calamere. This is your city, your voice. Coming to you live from the studios of 4680Q in downtown Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada. 4680Q radio here. And as you can see beside me, I have a guest, and that guest is Mr. Joedy Burdette. And we're talking city council today.
We sure are.
Yeah, and you talk nice and loud in that microphone. I don't want anybody to miss a word you're going to say here today. So welcome to the show. We saw a 4.9% increase in the budget last week, not even a week ago. So we're going to get Jody's take on that for you guys out there, as well as an explanation as to why he was not allowed to speak at the budget meeting. And I'm sitting there, Joedy, and I'm waiting for you to get up on the podium and give your take on all this. And I looked and there's no Joedy. And I'm going, what the heck's going on with these guys? Now what have they pulled on the guy? But we're going to get into that. Just let me talk about my sponsors and we'll get right into it. That okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Once we get going, we'll get going.
Yeah, Jody's, he agrees with it. He agrees with everything. He's a good guy. Okay, so Wild Bill's Auto Repair and Body Shop, Pete's Pizza on Victoria Avenue, and of course, Hamel Machine Company. I changed from shop. Bob Benner was in on Friday, and it's Hamel Machine Company, although he does run a phenomenal shop there on Bridge Street and on Kent is where the main shop is. So anyway, Wild Bill's Auto Repair and Body Shop. Look at this weather. It's 30 degrees, chilly, windier than heck today. You're going to get blown ashore if you're out there on that lake. And you know, this is the kind of day where you think, oh, it's so nice. You go for a drive and your car breaks down. Isn't that the way it works? And you're stuck on the side of the road thinking it's going to be okay and it's cold, windy. Listen, get it into Wild Bill's Auto Repair and Body Shop. Let Ken Hunter take a look at your car. Make sure all systems are go. Make sure that everything's running right. He'll put it on his diagnostic equipment. He'll tell you exactly what's wrong with your car and fix it. He'll make sure it's safe. Make sure everything's working for winter. As we head into spring in another maybe 6 weeks?
Hope so.
Oh, March 1st is when I call summer in Canada. So get it down to Wild Bill's Auto Repair and Body Shop on Oakwood Drive, right next to the Kia dealership. He'll be happy. I'll be happy. Joedy will be happy. Everybody will be happy, especially you when you're not breaking down in this crappy weather. And don't forget, he has a full body shop. If you get in a wreck, he'll get your car in, fix it, send it out in showroom condition. Please support our sponsors because they support the show. Please subscribe to the video. If you're watching and you haven't subscribed, go down there, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button, the little bell, so that you know when I'm posting videos, and give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, comments, whatever. We put them on air when we do get together. Okay, Joedy, so let's get into this this little ordeal here. First of all, what'd you think of the 4.9% increase?
I thought it was actually appropriate. I know some people might say that they increased it, but I do have to accept that costs do go up, and I think they went up pretty minor. You know, they say it's an inflationary budget, so they tried to keep it to just whatever they assumed that the costs were going to increase.
Don't mind me. I'm looking for my cap because I don't want to spill the water all over the place. Go ahead, Joedy. Go ahead.
So that part I was okay with the number actually, because you hear other numbers like you compare it to the region and that's just ridiculous. You're talking 7, 8, 9%.
9%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the city kind of defended their position pretty well. I think the opposition to that is, well, I guess they should have made more effort to increase their revenue so that they didn't have to add anything at all.
Good point.
But I don't think a city can actually do that.
Well, here's the thing that got me is that we had more revenue, like about $8 million, $7 or $8 million more come in this year because of development, more taxes than that, and yet they spent $15 million more. So to me, that says we can't live within our means. We have to jam the citizens for another $7 million when we had extra money coming in already this year, but we want to top that up by $7 million. That's where I have a problem. And And also, only estimating casino revenue at 14 million is another sad case for me. And we saw Tiffany Clark talk about nonsense. Get up there and talk about, oh well, what happens if we don't get the money? Well, don't worry about that. We'll deal with that if we don't get it. Number one, we dealt with it for 2 years when COVID hit. Also, she always goes like, oh yeah, well we put so much to the capital budget and we can't move this because of and my thing is listen, here you have $20 million here, Joedy, right? Now we take out of that 20 million, 14 million, because that's all they're putting in the ledger. And we whack it up between all the departments. This much to help taxes, this much for the capital, this much for this much for that. And that's the way they whack it all up. So that's already accounted for. Now we got 6 million that's not accounted for. Why can't we take that and just put it towards the taxes? And they go, oh no, we got these rules that we got to go by, and that's a bunch of baloney too, because they're rules they made up. Council can make any rules they want. So this is where I get a little bit upset with the budget when I hear them underestimating the casino revenue and spending 7 million more than the 8 million we took in already. We upped our revenue. That's where I have a problem. Am I out of line or?
Well, what I think it is with cities, any city, it doesn't really matter, even maybe any government, is that they have so many things that they want to do. Okay, that unlimited. If you were to give them unlimited money, they would spend it all. Okay,
that's the truth,
and it is. So when they say that we're going to have a budget of $100 million, whatever it is, that they are still thinking, oh, we want to improve this road, this bridge, this everything, and in order to do that, we need $200 million. Well, they're never going to get that, so they're always going to want to spend more money than they get. So, like as you said, like yes, I agreed with. I did read your. I watched your show before where you comment about how they can just change the number on a ledger, like the value of the casino money. And I never actually thought about that, but I guess that was pretty good. So I think Tiffany said that they got 18.8 million, if I was recall correctly. Um, if if they did get that money, okay, they still are going to spend way above that, anyways.
Oh yeah.
Okay, because they want to draw things in. They keep saying that they've deferred capital projects, and I agree that they have, but they are so far behind that they're always going to constantly spend above budget. The principle with taxes is that you try to take as much as you could possibly take without causing a revolt. I think that's the principle behind taxes.
Don't stop taking until they revolt.
That's correct. And if
oh man,
there were only 3 people in the gallery during that meeting, from what I understood, I was one of them. Now, if there was 100 people in there, like when the fire department's budget was going to get cut or something like that, well, you might have had a different conversation during that budget meeting.
That's a good point.
But there was only 3, and they know that when nobody participates, they have free reign to do whatever they want. So it's tough. Like you can't. They can. I guess they're trying. I still not sure why they even made it 3.9, plus the 1% capital. No one's going to object to it. They're not going to get fired. They can do whatever they want. They could have just made it 8 and solved everybody's problem. A lot of people would have complained, but nothing would have happened to them.
And I said that about the Innovation Hub. I think the Innovation Hub left $1.3 million on the table. That guy's not too smart because he says 700 and they okay it like nothing. If he would have said 2 million, they would have probably said, okay, go ahead, take 2 million. Don't stop taking until they quit giving.
Like that, you mentioned the Innovation Hub, and I don't know too much about it, but I'm inherently kind of indifferent. But I realized that, okay, first of all, that at least the mayor, he's on, just like he was dedicated to the hospital, he's dedicated to the university downtown. Okay.
Oh yeah.
The university is tied into the Innovation Hub.
Yes.
And if the mayor wants the university here, they've already done that sale on Queen Street, all this other kind of stuff. There is nothing that any resident could possibly do to affect anything that involves the hub or the university, because that's his next pet project, and that can't be stopped. So I was going to try to criticize that, just like Lori the Coco did, but I realized, no, you can't, bang against the wall. Once the mayor has decided that that's what's going to happen in the city, no regular resident can change that. Maybe a counselor can bring it up in a motion and draw attention to it, but I wouldn't be able to stop that money from being going to the hub at all.
And that's a good point, because the Innovation Hub and the University of Niagara Falls are make work programs for a lot of people, and people who are tied in with people, if you know what I mean. So you can figure it out there what I'm talking about, because there's a lot of people whose people are working there. That's all I'll say about that for now.
Yeah,
I might talk more about it tomorrow, from what I heard.
The university and the hub, that's a very political thing, and I don't think anybody can go against that.
You know what? My thing is I want to see the books. That's been my thing with it. Let's see the books. Let's see where you're spending the money. I mean, we're giving you $700,000 a year. Surely you can open your books and let us see it. Transparency. That's what everybody talks about, right? But nobody's seen anything from these guys. So where the money's going, we don't know. They tell you about all these big glorious things they're doing, all these businesses and that. And my thing to them is always, if you're doing that great, what do you need us for? Why do you have to pick the taxpayer's pocket?
See, that innovation hub, someone would have to research the information behind that so much to be able to actually have an intelligent conversation about why they should get the money or not. And nobody can do that. They've kept all that information secret.
They have.
Yeah. So you can't get at it. That means you can't have an equal conversation in council.
Yeah, and it's a big web of Spark Innovation Hub, where there was allegations of fraud and people were dismissed. There was millions of dollars that were received from the provincial government for it, maybe even the federal government. There was a tie-in with Holdco, which is the NPE, Niagara Power, whatever the hell it's called. But the electricity, the hydro that we own, and the tie-in with Niagara Holding Company, I think it's called that. That's a part of Holdco. It's like a big, intricate web, Joedy, and you're right. For somebody to be able to figure it all out without the information, you're kind of at a just trying to figure it all out without the proper information in front of you, and nobody's going to open the books.
No. So that's like I can see that. So on that particular topic, I don't go forward on it because I think it's a dead end for a regular person to try to go after.
And you've got a good point, and I just wish they would, but like you said, if that's the mayor's thing, then you're not going to get it. University of Niagara Falls was this thing, and even though it's a diploma mill, it appears like a lot of them. You're not going to convince anybody on council that's on the mayor's side that they should do something with it. No. They treat these guys like they're royalty,
because that's something that is high profile, and it benefits their perceived career. Like they're doing a very good thing. Like everybody, you just say university, and everybody usually thinks that's a good thing, right? So if you're on the side of that university, well, whether it's right or wrong, like the things that you're going to have to compensate for that system coming in, and even whether it's successful enough, just the publicity to say that we have a university, we have an innovation hub, we have all this. It's just enough to say those words, and people are happy to hear it, and they think it's successful, and they think it's working, and it probably is to a certain degree, right? But again, I think Lori the Coco said it. Are we getting our money's worth?
Bang for the buck.
Yeah.
And when they build the mayoral library for Jim Diodati, that's a nice little thing in there. He started that. He got the hospital. He screwed up New Year's Eve down the. Oh no, he didn't do it. Right. Yeah, that was somebody else to blame that on. And he had 2 million people here for the eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
He's got some great stuff in the mayoral library. He invented the meteor crater here.
Yeah.
across the street. How many cities have a meteor crater?
Oh, I don't know how many. The thing that I wonder is, okay, yes, now it was brought to light that the university apparently bought that piece of land down on Queen Street.
Yes.
This one here, they've upped the height to make it more profitable, I guess, or enticing for a developer to come in and help out. Okay, that draw a lot of attention to that particular project, and it seemed to be positive attention because they passed something, right? They did something affirmative. They made it taller, and but still, um, is it is the building going to be completed within the next 4 or 5 years? Probably not. It's still going to keep on going, right? Every once in a while, they resurrect it and give hope, but it and then people think, oh yeah, I remember they did something good about that, but nothing ever happened after that. I could be wrong. Maybe there is a developer who's going to build a 20-story building there, but the downtown core had the MZO across from the train station. Nothing has occurred.
What's the MBVO?
The minister's zoning order, MZO.
Okay.
Right,
Do
they're allowed to build 40 stories right across from the train station.
at the old hotel there?
Yeah, like the Europa Hotel and the Rosbergs, everything.
Oh yeah,
down
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, they're allowed to go 40 stories now. But still, have you heard anything about anything on that? Nothing.
The only thing I hear is about these places catching on fire.
Well, yeah, there's only a few more left, so we won't have too many stories. Yeah. So I've hounded council. Like I'm the one who's responsible that the Europa Hotel got all boarded up because I kept complaining, right? I even went to the effort to say, hey, if you guys don't do it, I'm gonna blame the fire department because they have stricter rules. If they don't go and do it themselves, then they're getting liable for not following their own rules. Well, 2 weeks later, whatever, the whole building was boarded up, right? But even then, I've watched it a few times, and I've called the city, and the bylaw inspectors are pretty good. When I talk to them, and says, yeah, we came by, and someone peeled away the wood. They actually bent the bars to get into the base, so they're pretty dedicated to get into those buildings.
Yeah, well, we got to have somewhere to stay.
All it takes is just someone trying to stay warm overnight, right? I won't. I will not go so far as it's a conspiracy that the owners are trying to burn down the buildings. I don't think that's the case because I don't think it's that relevant whether the building was there or not. But you're still getting these people who are going in there, and that's what's happening. They're accidentally burning all these buildings down. And it's kind of, well, when you think, shouldn't the fire department kind of be on top of that? That's their job to prevent fires, right? Granted, they go down there, they put it out, they send a bill to someone, they probably get a lot of money for that. But it doesn't really reflect too well on the fact that they're not keeping up on areas where people are complaining about.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. I mean, like the city, to me, has to get a little bit tougher, and they've got to bring this down to health and safety. That these things are not safe, and as long as they're not safe, we're tearing them down and give the owners, listen, you got 30 days or 60 days, whatever they want to say, to either fix it, like come in and start renovating it and make it into something, or we're tearing it down and we're going to do it under health and safety. Look what they got to be like Trump with Colombia. You're taking these guys back. If you don't, we're going to hammer you until you're going to wish you never said no to us.
Well, they have their vacant building bylaw, right? They passed that. I guess that's supposed to help out. But I didn't think the registration fees and the penalties or anything were really justified. That a large corporation could just ride that out forever.
Yeah, and you see a lot of that from city council. Like, I don't know if you remember when they were building, they had the plans for the 77-story building.
Yeah.
Remember that? And Mike Strange got up and made the negotiation, the best negotiation I've ever seen. We want 50 trees. They're going to spend $1 billion, and he asked for 50 trees. And the guy laughed at him. Yeah. Sure, whatever. Yeah, you want 50? You want 50? You want 60? What do you want? Why didn't you ask for 10,000 trees?
No, I remember that one.
It's a joke.
I actually asked council to approve that one.
Yeah.
Because of the location, the height, and everything like that. And then I don't know if I mentioned it here, but I've said it to other people. There's a for sale sign on that property now. Right? Yeah, it's never going to get built.
They spend $200,000 or $300,000 to get a rezone.
Yep.
and then they flip it. Same with the one on Dairy Queen. It's always the same every time, and they wonder why nothing gets built. Well, all it is just flipping money. People are just making money. They're gonna get it zoned, and then they can sell it for twice as much.
See, my problem with that, and I brought it up to city council, was that I consider that a planning deficiency. Is that if this particular, like, if you right now you got this vacant lot right here, it was zoned for 10. Someone could have come in and built a 10-story building. That's $50 million, right? Somebody might have had that.
Yep.
At 20 stories, now it's $100 million. The odds of someone having $100 million to build a 20-story building is a lot less than someone who has $50 million, right? So when they said, "Oh, let's go 20," they may have prevented that from being developed, because when someone looks at that, they're going to say, "I want to maximize that." And because if I build 10, it's a waste of 10 stories. So I'm not going to build 10 until I can build 20. And if they can never build 20, it never gets developed. So they could have hurt that development property right there by saying, "Let's go 20." See, I know that because I'm a property owner right over on Bridge Street there. And when I built all my stuff, it was only 4 stories that you were allowed to go. I got a little variance to go 5 stories. But I thought, okay, with that, I can develop that whole property. And then they came in and they changed the zoning and they made it up to 14 stories for me. And what crossed my mind was they just kind of screwed me over, because there is no way I'm ever going to build on that property again, because anything less than 14 stories is a waste of money. And I think that's what they're doing with these other properties, is when they make that, they did the one down by the casino where they were allowed to have 30, but they made it 60 instead. And I stood up there and I said the same thing, that no, if these guys think they can build a 60-story building, then they know they can build a 30-story building. Go with the 30 and you know you're going to get it done.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Well, see, now what they want to do is start the Niagara Falls Real Estate Company, the city, and they're going to be partners with the developer here on some level.
Yeah, I think what that is there is this particular property, what they want to keep it under the umbrella of the city, so that there's no development charges, no property taxes or anything like that. Okay, the other one on Queen Street for the university, that's a straight out buy. They're going to be responsible for paying all those things.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that's what this is. It's going to stay under the umbrella of the city, so that everything is tax exempt, which kind of they're trying to get it, but that might not work either.
Well, we'll see what happens with that, but hopefully they build something there. I mean, and now we got people across the street who are concerned about a lot of stuff and contamination, and there's a lot going on around that property.
Well, I know that the one girl spoke up about being looking at a 20-story building. I've actually met her before because she's my neighbor right behind me. And she's sort of right. A 20-story building put on the wrong place of that property, and she's going to be in shade almost all the time.
Well, she's going to be in shade, a lot of the time, because because
the sun comes over here. I know it from my building. Like my building being 5 stories high, the front of my property never sees sun. That's why it's like an ice sheet through the wintertime. A 20-story building right there would be the same as, she's going to be locked in shadow forever.
Yeah, well, especially in the winter, because the sun drops a little bit lower in the sky, and then they won't get anything all winter. I don't know where she lives, though. I've talked to this girl. I saw her at City Council, but it's one of these 3
4
here.
or 5 houses down from where they start.
Okay, yeah.
Now, I know, I think I read that the city bought that old refrigeration factory.
Oh, the Cataract Ice.
Yeah.
Yes.
City bought that.
I heard that,
the city bought the house beside it. So you can see they're slowly expanding up there. If their goal is to slowly, take all those houses, well, that's great, because those people will probably want to move out anyways after a while.
Yeah, well, once they start building these big buildings and everything else, I mean, really, it's going to be wild too, and it depends who they put in these buildings and what's going on as well, right? So if they can get a good buck for their house, you're right. I think they'll just go.
Well, down here, I think the most important thing that people in Niagara Falls need to see is one building built. Nothing has been built down here at all. Like, I think my building is the last building that has been constructed, and I started in 2006 or something like that. So nothing like, you got some renovations, you got some minor little things, but no actual building over a certain height has been constructed in the downtown core. Now, if you can get one big skyscraper down here, well, then maybe everything they ever did might be justified. But until that happens, everybody can criticize them.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, let's see what happens across the street. I mean, Jim Daddy was in here 2 years ago when he was running for mayor again, right? And I asked him about that, and he said, "We got plans that's going to go right. As soon as we get elected, there's going to be a developer in there going to be building something." And now we were 2.5 years later, to over 2 years later, 28 months over, and I'm still looking at the meteor crater, and actually, the meteor crater is getting deeper. The land's sinking, so yeah, they're going to have to pour more fill in there when they come.
Well,
Oh my
what
goodness!
I'd like to find out is what I'm waiting for is obviously we all know there's election in 2026.
Yes, there is.
Okay, if you recall in 2022, that's when certain announcements came up, like I think it was the hospital or something like that. Just to say we've accomplished something. It'll be interesting to see if all these things downtown, you're going to get big announcements in the summer of 2026.
Oh yeah,
Right?
guaranteed,
Yeah.
guaranteed.
Yeah.
You can guarantee that. So what I want to get into next is the deputation you wanted to give on budget night, and me watching TV expecting you to get up there and say something, but you never did. So I want to get into that, but first a word about my second sponsor. Okay, just hold on to that. We're going to be back with that, and this is going to be interesting. But let's get over to Pete's Pizza on Victoria Avenue. Now, I love pizza. That's my favorite food, probably pizza. So I'm a real pizza snob, and I only go to certain places that make a good pizza. And Pete's Pizza on Victoria Avenue is one of them. And I even said to Mike, the owner, you can sponsor the show if I like your pizza. If I don't like it, I don't have the heart. I can't talk good about it. So I snuck my wife in there, Liz, and she got a pizza we tried. It was fantastic. They make a great pizza, the Mancini family recipe they use for the sauce and the crust. Mike knows how to mix the cheese and the sauce at the right ratio, so you're not getting overwhelmed by either. The Mancini family made this recipe for 40 years. They opened the first Pete's Pizza in St. Catharines. Mike's got this one. He worked at an Italian restaurant for, I think he said, 15 years, so he knows what he's doing. But they're not one-trick pony over there. They have beautiful wings, fantastic wings, steak and cheese poutine, steak sandwiches, panzerotti. They have a whole menu this big of different items that you can have. So don't worry about finding something you like there. If you're not a big pizza fan, I haven't met anybody yet who's not a big pizza fan. Maybe Joedy isn't. I don't know.
No, I have.
You like pizza?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. And yeah, get down there and then see Mike and get a nice pizza, fresh ingredients. I usually like the Canadian. It's got bacon crumble, mushrooms, and pepperoni on it. It's fantastic. But no matter what you order there, it's great. I've had a tray. The trays are really good, and sometimes trays aren't as good as the pies. There they are. Pete's Pizza on Victoria Avenue, 905-374-2222, or you can go to petespizza.victoria.ca to get your order in. And they're open till 2 in the morning on Friday and Saturday for all you partiers that get home and you want to watch Fright Night and have a pizza. That's what I used to do. That's why I know about that. My partying days are over, Joedy. I'm getting too old for that crap. I can't take it. But anyway, Pete's Pizza on Victoria Avenue. You're not going to go wrong. Believe me, you're going to love it. Tell them Paul from Your City Your Voice sent you. And enjoy a beautiful pizza. Sponsor. Hey, they sponsor the show, so support our sponsors. That's my message to everybody. Okay, Joedy, I was disappointed. I wanted to see you get right in there and talk about this budget and make your suggestions because I know you always are on top of it and you have great suggestions. What the heck happened?
Okay, it's
talk loud into that mic.
It may be a little bit complicated the way I say this, but it's all administrative legal processes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I had gone through the procedure of requesting a delegation, and that's where you give 24 hours notice that you want to speak before certain agenda items. I made 3 requests. I wanted to talk to the in-camera resolution, another one that was kind of relevant, and then the one for the budget. I went to City Hall early in the morning so that I could sit in during the very open session where they open up for 5 minutes and say we're going in camera. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I showed up there and there was a little bit confusion because um, they weren't going to do that. Apparently, back in December 10th, they had passed a resolution to go an in-camera meeting on the 21st, and I didn't know about that. So I thought that they were kind of not following the rules. Eventually, I realized that it was my little mistake that they actually had a resolution from December 10th saying they were going education meeting, and then they had a resolution on that particular day going into an education meeting. It's like how often does that actually happen? That's the first time I've ever encountered that. So obviously, if I encounter it again, that confusion won't happen again. But so I was in council over on City Hall early in the morning, and then I left. So when I came back, um, I had already sent in. Okay, Bill, the clerk,
Bill Matson.
Bill Matson, the clerk. Okay, what I asked for is I'm requesting opportunity to delegate on the following agenda items at the upcoming City Council. Agenda item 2.1, 3.1, and 5.3. So 5.3, I said this is the budget meeting. This was the because they ask you for a brief description of why you want to speak, and I said I wish to propose amendments just as the other councilors have done so. Okay. Furthermore, I have submitted financial documents, specifically reserve and bank balances, that I may draw the council's attention to during my delegation. I am sharing the balance of all the city reserve funds and bank accounts as per my recent information requests. I find it helpful to know these balances as well as their historical data when reviewing budget reports. Unfortunately, the administration does not often include this information. I am providing the fees and consolidated information so that all councillors and residents of Niagara Falls can better be informed and make more educated decisions. The documents are not confidential. So that was my request. Bill came back and he basically said something along the lines of, it is improper for you to refer to yourself as a counselor when you make your requests. Okay. Now, I didn't quite understand what he was saying until I read it over a few times. Because in my initial request, I said I wanted to propose amendments just like other counselors have done so, he took that as I'm saying I'm a counselor along with the other counselors. Okay. So that's how I got to, yes, it's the way he interprets things. I'm fairly certain that I'm on a path to get administratively banned from presenting at council. Okay. When a clerk misinterprets a simple saying as other counselors, implying that I'm saying I'm a counselor and I want to present a proposal like a counselor, well, that's starting to cross the red line. And I know I'm getting into that area where they're trying to prevent me from speaking at using any possible excuse whatsoever.
Well, I mean, Bill, he's not a counselor. So how do you interpret that as him being a counselor?
Now that was me being denied the delegation. Okay. I know that when a city makes a decision, it's final. Even if they make the decision with wrong information, it's still final. So what I did is there's a clause 12.6 in the procedural code where I can request an emergency appointment, meaning I want to, even though I got denied, I still want an opportunity to speak. Council has to make the decision. So I sent that letter off and I kind of explained to everyone that the comments about other counselors were only a factual statement because there were only 3 other people making amendments and they were all counselors. So I said the other councillors. If you were on there proposing something, I would have said other people. But obviously, he's trying to target any possible thing that I do wrong to prevent me from going up on council. It's just kind of getting a little bit ridiculous. But anyways, on the 13th, I went through that same procedure. I asked for an appointment. And when I sat in council chambers, it was just me and my father. We were the only one because that was the in-camera meeting. When it came up to my turn where I should have been able to speak, Bill Clark did nothing. He ignored me.
Bill Madsen.
Bill Madsen. He ignored me. Only when Councillor Patel stood up, and I think Lori Lococo was going to stand up too, and they said, well, Bill, I think there's somebody in the gallery here who wants to speak. Then he gets up, he explains everything. He knew all the information, but he just didn't reveal it. So he had to reveal it all, and eventually I was allowed to speak to that one. Well, I did the same procedure when I was at the budget meeting. This time, it went through the process where Bill, again, didn't say anything. But what was different is no councillor got up and said, Joedy is in the gallery. He would like to speak. That's why I wasn't allowed to speak. I was a little bit disappointed by that. But I did write in my letter when I said I wanted an appointment. It says, I guess I might have to just sit there for 2 hours and wait until that moment arrives. And if I'm not allowed to speak, well, then I'll just have to get up and leave. And that's what I did after I just got up and handed in my little headphones for hearing disabled stuff, and I left.
And if you rewind maybe about a year, so somewhere around a year, I'd say, and the history of Joedy with City Council, is that he used to submit on every item that he felt necessary to submit something, a letter from the general public to City Council, and they would have to post it on the agenda, right? Which was they figured a lot of work. So they said they made a rule that they weren't going to do that anymore. So it was to cut Joedy off.
Yeah, well,
that's what it was.
How those steps went actually is for 6 months, they allowed me to respond to everything I wrote to, and they would put it under the actual agenda item. Then what they did is they still continued to allow me to respond to everything, but they grouped them all and put them under the communications of the clerk. So now if a topic came up, you had no normal person had any idea that I had written anything, because you're not going to look in the comments to find out what happened on a budget meeting type thing, right?
Exactly.
And then pretty much eventually what happened after that is because I wrote all my comments with, they had the image of the Lady Justice on it.
Yes.
And my paper has the watermark of that image. If I submit any comments that have that image of the Lady Justice, they won't publish it.
Heaven forbid.
Yes.
They have Lady Justice.
Yes. So that's what happened, and then eventually got to the point, well, that's not very practical for me, because my goal of informing both council and the region or the residents is not working. So I just decided, well, I guess I'll just stand up and I'll speak what I was going to write.
Yeah, you did a beautiful end around on these guys, right? They thought they had you, and then all of a sudden you're showing up at meetings doing the same thing, but live and in person rather than by paper.
It's the same thing. Like, way back when I was building my building, I built the scaffolding, and the scaffolding was touching the building. Then, they came in and said, you can't have it touch the building. So I reconfigured it so it doesn't touch the building, but I reconfigured it twice the height. It just doesn't work that way for me.
Yeah.
And now I'm afraid what's happening is I can see the cycle repeating itself. Okay, they allowed me to write, then they restricted me to a certain area, and then they prevented me. And the same thing is occurring now that I'm speaking. The cycle is repeating itself. Is they allowed me to speak, now they're restricting me, and now they're starting to prevent me from speaking.
And that's not right. I mean, you have a constitutional right to go in there and speak. You have a constitutional right to be in that building. I mean, it's our building. Taxpayers owned. It's a public building. They work for us.
But there is one important thing that I think everybody needs to understand is under the Municipal Act, cities are granted almost unlimited power to do anything that is required to govern the city. The only thing that they can't do is something that's illegal. Okay, I've read up court cases, right? You know, about freedom of information and all this other kind of stuff, and freedom for expression. And the consensus in the courts, from what I understand, is that even if the city makes an unreasonable bylaw or motion or request, the courts can't intervene. Okay, the courts could only intervene if it's illegal. So the city doesn't even have to allow people to delegate. There's nothing for a planning matter they do. Okay, but when they go up there and they pass some sort of budget about a fence bylaw or something like that, they don't have to allow anybody to delegate. And when they start exercising that rule, then something's wrong, because they're supposed to do transparency and honesty and all this other kind of stuff.
Well, anybody should be allowed to speak. I mean, let's face it. They work for us. It's our government. We elect them, and if we have a problem, you should be able to go there and speak your mind. I mean, that's what democracy is.
Well, that's how we do it right now. But if you further research, I think they don't actually have to allow you to speak.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I would have never guessed that. I mean, we need a constitutional republic, I guess.
Mm.
To change that, because that if you want to go in there now, I'll put a caveat on there.
Mm-hmm.
If you go in there and you cause trouble, you're yelling, screaming, swearing, and threatening anybody, well, then they should throw you out.
Oh, when I see that, my eyes just roll backwards.
Yeah, because that doesn't do you any good, because you're there, calm, collected, making your point, and getting off the stage in 5 minutes like they want you to. And I don't even know what that 5 minutes should be there, to be honest with you.
Well, it's I can do what I want to do within 5 minutes, right? But I asked the computer to sort of like, hey, is this letter going to take me 5 minutes to read it? It tells me, right?
Yeah.
So I do a little bit of research. I don't want to abuse their system, but I try to do everything that I do within their rules. Okay, and I'm the type of person who really does push the rules to the limit. I agree with that. Okay, but it's still within the rules most of the time, and they don't really accept that, and then they have to change the rules to bring those limits down.
But the rules are only for certain people. You know that, because Nick DeLuca was up there. He talked for half an hour, and then him and Councillor Only 8, they got into a discussion of a regional government during a budget meeting, which had nothing to do at all with the meeting. And he was at least half an hour, 45 minutes maybe. And then the weasel came in, right, from the Niagara Hotel Association, Doug Burrell, and he was there for an hour arguing with them. I mean, right away, as soon as he read his letter, that should have been the end of his 5 minutes. And he should have been told to buzz off, because what he was talking about had nothing to do with the council meeting. So they pick and choose who they want to give time to. And you're one of the guys they don't.
Yeah. Well, if you recall,
they always limit
the first meeting where they had the Innovation Hub, the guy from the Innovation Hub would do a presentation. This was like a couple meetings ago.
Yes, I remember.
And I was in the gallery, and I had my timer on because they didn't have their timer on. Between him and him bringing in all his other friends and stuff, it was an hour and a half delegation.
What happened to the 5 minutes?
And like, oh my goodness, here you got Mike Strange complaining that these meetings are going late and late and late. It's like, well, rein in these people who are speaking like 20, 30 minutes. Like, granted, like it looks bad on the mayor if he cuts somebody off and says, hey, your 5 minutes is over, you're dismissed. Okay. But sometimes you got to do that kind of stuff.
Well, he's in charge of the meeting. He's the CEO. He's up there in charge of the meeting. He runs the meeting. So, to me, if somebody gets up, like Only 8 and Mona Patel, Triple F, if they get up and start on with their grandstanding and all their baloney, then it's up to the mayor to say, I appreciate what you're saying, but this really isn't the place for it. So can we bring that? Like maybe you can go to staff and ask about that. She wanted to know the history of Summer Street residents.
Mm-hmm.
So they went on, and now between her and the Penguin, they went on for like an hour talking about the history of Summer Street. The people in the audience couldn't give a god darn about the history of Summer Street. They wanted solutions to their problems of people busting into their house and taking a leak on their front lawn and flaking out in needles. They couldn't care less how it got that way. They want to know how you're going to fix it.
Oh, it's when I'm in the gallery, there are times when I'm not sure if I fall asleep. Is that going to cause a disturbance?
Yeah.
Because I do literally want to close my eyes, time travel until this is over, and get on with business. Now, I want to
You just said it. It's a business meeting.
It is.
It's not a tea social, and it's a $1,600 an hour business meeting that we're paying taxpayers.
Now, I want to give credit to one counselor, which I usually don't do. Okay, I know you refer to him. I think as a no-do, like
No-dos.
Tony Baldinelli.
Yeah, Counselor Baldinelli. No-dos.
But he did say one thing that I'll probably never forget. He got up there and he said something along the lines of, "I'm tired of counselors just speaking to make comments. Would someone please ask a question or do something?" And I thought, oh my God, that's what everybody in the whole city wants. Just stop talking and make a decision. It's just, oh.
I agree. And Tony Baldinelli doesn't talk a lot.
No.
But when he does, it's good. Like he told city council, before we go around the city hammering people about their weeds and everything else, we better get our own house in order. And I thought that was very, very good. He said a lot of good things, Tony Baldinelli. The problem is, he's like one of these hockey players who gets 30 goals and they score once every month.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden in 1 month they score 20 times.
That's right.
And then they do nothing the rest of the season. Mm-hmm. Like he just doesn't talk enough. He doesn't get up. And sometimes I look and I say, somebody please put a mirror under his nose to see if he's still breathing over there. You know, because he just that capital budget meeting, he didn't even nobody got up and said anything. Him and Dabrowski never said a word.
No, you know, I thought about that because they never made any proposed amendments. Okay, so they're probably not even going to speak to it, other than to just praise something or get their I think they have a policy that every counselor has to at least participate. They've probably had a discussion in camera. Okay, even though you don't want to say something, you still have to look like you're participating.
Please,
right? So get up and say something. It's like, well, I did some research that seven other cities did whatever he said, right? Something that was totally irrelevant to the conversation. But no, it's Tony. I thought myself, maybe he's just overwhelmed because he's got these other counselors who just get up there and talk about nothing.
Oh,
and
it's brutal.
It's like, okay, like you said, okay, the exchange of the some of the female counselors talking about the like you said, the homeless shelters and stuff. Like Mike Strange, his situation is he talks about sports and compassionate things. If you could just get off of that, heartstring type conversation and do business stuff, maybe you could have like a 4-hour meeting and get twice as much done. Yeah.
Well, the thing is that some counselors feel that they have to get up and say something after every thing before everything's approved. They've already got a consensus they're going to approve it, and they got to get up and say, and give their like, oh yeah, this is a great thing. I really, really agree with it. And I'm going like, all you have to do is raise your hand, yes, and people will know you agree with it. I mean, you don't need to get up there and talk stupid. You don't need that. Nobody needs that. Save us some money.
Well, they do have the rule that counselors are only supposed to speak 5 minutes also, but they're breaking that.
Oh yeah, they break it every week. I want to get back to the reserve funds and bank accounts that you were talking about. But I got to have a word from my third sponsor, sure. Hamel Machine Company. And we had Bob Benner in on Hamel Machine Company. I was really, really surprised. If you listen to the show, you'll know what I mean. Like I'm talking about like a machine shop doing this stuff and that, but these guys are involved in huge projects, as well as doing little things for the public in Niagara Falls. Big industry or any industry depends on machine shops to do a lot of their work. And it was amazing the work that they did and the stories that Bob told about, working with the Maid of the Mist, lifting them off the ice, making these big wine racks and everything, and coming up with new ideas for the wineries around here. As well as if you take your little piece of metal down, they can weld it up for you, fix it, or fabricate a new one for you. They have the ability, they have the engineers, they have the technology to do this kind of stuff. And they're work with the agricultural industry around the world. Hamel Machine Shop, and they're great guys. You got to go there if you need anything designed, done in metal, or 3D printing, or, and used to say laser cutting, but they don't even have that anymore. They use water jet cutting. So another angle that they use all the time. So Hamel Machine Shop is the place you can go to get anything done you need. And if you don't know where to go to get it fixed, if they can't fix it, they're going to definitely tell you where to go. And it's going to be where to go to a good place, not where to go. So Hamel Machine Shop, I know you used it for your building, Joedy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They made parts for me.
Yeah, Hamel to make parts for Joedy here, Joedy Burdette. Hamel Machine Shop. They're over here on Bridge Street. They took over Hauser's Welding, and they also have a place on Kent Street in Niagara Falls, hamelmachine.ca. Go check it out. Not only can they fix anything you have around your house you need fixed, design maybe a back set of gates for your house, but they do a lot of different things with aluminum and all different metals, 3D printing, water jet cutting. You want a nice sign with your address and that on it? Yeah, they can do it for you. All that neat stuff you see, they can do it right there. You don't have to order it anywhere. Just go down and see Bob Benner or his staff at Hamel Machine, and they'll take care of it. Support our sponsors because they support the show. Okay, Joedy. So the budget and reserve funds and bank accounts. Everybody always asks me, how much is in reserve funds? How much debt is the city in? How much do they have floating around in the bank? And nobody can ever give me an answer, so I just guess. And nobody's ever said I was wrong. But do you have any information on that may be more current and more trustworthy than me trying to figure it out?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Back in the middle of 24, I did an information request, and I asked the city what the balance of their bank accounts were. And I asked the city what all the reserves were, because they have so many, you can't keep track of them.
You got that right.
And I also asked them, what are the balances of all the reserves? And they actually gave it to me. It was like $95 million worth of reserves.
$95 million.
Yeah, like I think I brought them in here. Something along the lines of, there were 6 pages. And we'll say, like, I'll just give you a short example. Capital special purpose reserves.
Yes.
General unallocated 1.6 million. And then you got something like equipment reserves, 200,000. The total, like I said, that's 79,000. So all the money that the city has in reserves is $99 million. Okay.
So $100 million.
Yeah, and it goes to, like, you're talking, okay, you got ones that are millions of dollars, but you also have something that's sports find new equipment program, 6,000. Like, I have no idea what that is. You have park development obligation reserve fund, $250. You know, like, they're all there. Because the reason why I wanted that was, whenever anybody does a budget, you take into consideration how much money you have in your savings account. Okay. When residents, I don't even know if the councilors have access to this information. The reserve funds,
They probably don't.
They can't normally get it. They would have to do an information request, just like I did. Okay. So I put it up on the agenda so that everybody would know how much the city of Niagara Falls has in their savings account. That way, you can, one of the counselors might have got up and said, hey, I noticed that we have $30,000 in this reserve fund that I don't even know what it is. Can't we just take that money out and pay for this instead? Right? That's what the information is for. It never actually got published on the agenda because I think the city didn't want that information revealed.
They're pretty tight chested with that. They hold those cards close to their
I,
vest.
I can respect that decision, right? But I don't think that it was a legit decision. I think they should have allowed it to be presented on council.
Well, you always wonder, because I remember when they ran in the 2024 budget, right? They had an entry in the capital budget of $14 million for new equipment. And then that same meeting, I think it was Lori Lococo, got up and she said, "Why are we giving $1.3 million to a hospital fund? We put all the money aside for that hospital, $30 million. And now by time 2028 comes around, it's going to be 30 million, which is our part, right? So we've got that covered. Why are we still taking 1.3 million and putting it aside?"
Okay,
So it was either Lori Lococo or Victor Peterangelo. Maybe it was Councillor Victor. And what they said was, yeah, we don't need that anymore. So, I'm sitting there thinking, great, it's going to come back to the taxpayers. Like that's maybe 1.3% off the tax bill. Well, immediately, Tiffany Clark stood up and she said, "Oh, I was going to take that money and put it in the vehicle reserve fund because we only got what you say 250,000 in there or something, right? The vehicle reserve fund." And so she grabbed that money and tossed it in that fund, and here we are. We never got a break that we probably should have got after they already okayed 14 million for new vehicles. I mean, how much money do they need for new vehicles?
Now, okay, with my list of the balance of reserves, okay, it says hospital 24 million. Okay, I thought we had 30 million. Okay, way back when I thought they actually took 30 million out and put it in the reserve, which is I think what they did.
I don't think so. I think they put 24 million in with growth over the next 4 or 5 years.
Oh, you think that's how it's going?
That's what they figured out. If we get a certain return on the money, maybe they bought bonds or something that's guaranteed interest. They figure we have to put 24 million or whatever that number is.
Yeah.
And they probably used a debenture to get the money. But we have to put that away, and by 2028 it'll grow to what we need to satisfy our part of it.
I thought it was that capital levy. Okay, that 1 point. Well, I think it's 2 now or whatever it is. That was when they first brought that in. I wrote a comment to council saying, well, if you're going to approve that, you better name it the Jim Diodati Hospital cap levy, right? And Victor Peterangelo, he was nice enough to say, well, let's not name it that. Let's just call it the capital levy, right? But it's still the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And but I thought that was for 20 years. Okay, they're saying things like we want to spread it out over the 20 years so that everyone pays for it.
That was the debenture.
Okay.
That was the debenture. We're going to borrow 24 million or whatever we need, and then the payments will do it over 20 years, like a mortgage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that not only do we pay today, but people down the road who are going to be using the hospital after we're dead and gone, they'll still be paying for it. So it's not just us; they're going to be using it in the future too once we build it, right? So,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that's a good way to, as far as I'm concerned, and I watch this stuff. That's the way I would prefer to do it too.
See these reserve funds, I'm going to request them every 4 months. That way I can keep track of how they change, and I'll be able to look at the numbers and say something. Okay, the hospital fund's 24 million right now. If next year I look at it and it's 23, well, something's going wrong, right?
Where's the money?
Right? And you got to have someone to I do it as a hobby. But if I can point out something and bring that to council's attention, well, that's my response. Like everybody has to do their part, right? It's like, hey, you said this and it doesn't look like this. Can you explain it? Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, but at least I do my effort.
Right.
I'm not up there yelling and screaming at anybody. I'm just trying to do it like, within the rules and everything.
Well, the only way we'll find out is if in 2027, when we make that budget, if they'll come back and that fund, if it isn't where it should be to get the 30 million, then they'll be saying, "Oh, we have to grab some capital and put it towards that fund."
Yeah, and they will,
Put some of the
and
casino
it'll
money,
happen, and we won't have any say in it. They'll
No,
just do what
no.
they want to do.
But that's the only time we'll ever find out how that fund's doing. And I mean, this should be on the this reserve fund that you're talking about right now
Yeah.
should be in the whatever budget it needs to be in every year with exactly what you got there, so that we know what we got.
It's like there's going to be situations where I present to council where I'll be able to use this information, and I'll try to put it up on council, and and on the agenda. We'll see if they publish it. You know, if they don't, well, then you know that they just don't want the public to know this information.
Well, there's a lot of things that they used to publish that we don't anymore, and it's because there'll be too much backlash from it. The fire department used to give a report every year telling us how many calls they had, how many of them were fire calls, and everything else. But it got to be so ridiculous. Like the last one I read was on maybe 2019, and there was like, 3,000 fire calls. I can't remember the exact numbers, and or 3,000 calls, and only like 15 fire calls. Like 1.5% of all calls are fire calls, where firemen actually have to go to a fire.
Yep.
And the rest, 98.5%, have nothing to do with fires. They have to do maybe with 4 or 5 gorge rescues and a couple of accidents on the highway where they have to use the jaws of life to extract people, or medical calls.
Yeah, well, they're faster than an ambulance. That's why they go first, right?
Well, they go first because the province mandates them. They have to get to a call within a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
The ambulances, because they're so busy, they get there when they get there. Sometimes you wait an hour for one if and you hope you don't croak before they get there.
Yeah.
There's not much you can do about it, but that's why the firemen can get there within the right amount of time, because they're mandated, and that's why we spend all the money on Fire Station 7.
Well, I think didn't that get brought up recently? Someone mentioned that, because I think someone said, well, can't we take that responsibility away from the fire department and throw it into a fast response system that only drives a car or something instead of a giant fire truck? Or I can't remember what the conversation was.
Well, my thing has been, listen, if we look at the numbers and we see that 98.5% of the calls are not fire calls, that means we don't need all those firemen. What we need is maybe more emergency medical people, EMS. They make $60,000 a year as opposed to $120,000 a year. So my thing is, and I'm not saying that that's what should happen. I'm not against the firemen. I appreciate their job, and I don't want to do it, to be honest with you. And if my house was on fire and they busted in and saved me, I'd be happy.
Oh,
but
sure.
But what I'm saying is that being our biggest department, $30 million a year, that if a review isn't justified for this to save money, and I think they can save 5 to 10 million, I think they can save a ton just by going to 12-hour shifts instead of 24-hour. I don't know until somebody does a deep dive into it. DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency.
Yes.
We'll get Vivek Ramaswamy here.
Well, if
Musk.
I think on the budget meeting, they passed approval that the city would have like a city works emergency task force, that they would go out and do the homeless thing, or to go out and do, like, they would be on call, right?
That's what they have. Okay. They said they're building.
Yeah, and they said that was good. They wanted that because it was going to save a lot of money. Well, in the case of the fire department going to all these emergency rescues, couldn't you use the same thinking process? Is that, why don't we just have an on-call emergency service that deals with the little things, and let the fire department deal with the things that they want to do? Like I if I was a fireman, I would want to save people in a high-rise building. I'd want to put fires out. I want a prevention thing like that. To actually go off and find somebody who's, overdosed on the sidewalk, well, that's not really a fireman's job, right?
No, and most cities have a permanent fire department, permanent employees, and they fill in with volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they might have in a city 50 volunteers. So when they have a big problem, a big fire, like we could have in one of the hotels or something, then it's all hands on deck. And you go from having 60 firefighters to having, 200 or 150 or whatever the volunteer force is. And you pay them $10,000 a year or whatever they make, right? because they're only on call every once in a while. They might only go to 3 or 4 fires or 3 or 4 calls, depending on what they need. So there's ways to mitigate the cost, $30 million, but they're sacrosanct. Nobody will touch them. Nobody will talk against them. You saw what happened when the Penguin tried to move the dispatch.
Ooh.
40 people in the crowd, like you said, 40 people in there, and then they folded like a cheap suit, city council, and said, no, we can't. Mike Strange, time is of the essence. Mike, technology, you don't have to worry about that. It's the same dispatch. A guy from India could dispatch our fire trucks as fast as somebody sitting in Niagara Falls. And they have Google Maps and Google Earth and Google Street View to tell you exactly what the building is, 1-story, 2-story apartment. Technology makes that argument, throws it out the window. But we're still the fire department is sacrosanct. And Ruth Newsteig, only 8, Councilor only 8, proved it. She said, well, let's cut $50,000 off the fire department. $50,000 on a $30 million budget? Why bother? Here, go have an ice cream at Rodney Don's Ice Cream over here. 50,000 on 30 million.
Yeah, it has
Why
to
bother?
be
Why bother?
a major
Don't even
overhaul
bother.
or investigation, or at least a thorough analysis to let all the critics realize that, no, maybe that is what they need, right? Until they do that, there's just so much speculation that it causes them problems, I think.
It really does. And these guys will get there in city council at a meeting there, 40 of them all show up because, they're all Sunshine List employees. They're making tons of money. They work like 9 days a month. I think 90 days a year on their 24-hour shifts, something like that. Who's going to want to ruin that golden goose? Mm-hmm. Unless we do it, nobody's going to do it. I mean, let's face it, it'll go on forever. Why not? And you know what? This isn't just Niagara Falls. This is every municipality in Ontario are having the same problems. Fire departments that cost so much they can't afford them anymore.
Yeah, I think one of the situations that they run into is that they have to be prepared to address a major call, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have like 50-story hotels. We need a fire department that can respond to a 50-story hotel. No 50-story hotel has caught on fire and burned down yet, but we need to maintain all the services for that. Like if you're in a little community where everything is 4 stories tall, well, you only need one fire truck with a ladder, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Right. And I think that's kind of what we're trapped to, is they have to have a contingency for the worst case scenario.
And, true. That's true. It's a good point.
That's the situation. Is you have to. It's just like I know my father used to work at a factory, and he would sometimes just sit all night long, and his job was only to be on call in case something broke. Right? Okay, the factory paid $2,000 for his wage for the day, and he did nothing. But if anything broke down, he had to get there because they were losing $10,000 an hour.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with lives, right? You have to be able, like if something goes down in a high rise, you have to be able to save those lives fast. And the only way you can do that is to have expensive equipment that just sits there. Same with firemen, right? You have to have the firemen to do it. And sometimes they have to just sit there and be on call. Whether or not they're doing that efficiently right now, well, we don't have the information to know that. We just have to, cross our fingers and hope. But
and that's my point, is that let's find out. Let's find out what we really need. I mean, if you have, 7 or 8 people in each fire station in Niagara Falls, and you have a big high-rise fire, well, I mean, there's only so many who can go in the truck and get there and climb ladders and that. Now, if we have fires like in California, you need 10,000 people. I don't care how many you hire, you're not going to have enough ever to fight that. You need planes and everything else. But, this is all good discussion to have in the city when we talk about the budget, because at the end of the day, we're paying for everything, every decision they make. Taxpayers are paying.
Sure.
And unbeknownst to the councilors, they don't, I swear to God, they don't know this. And I'm going to reveal something here that is really, really big to everybody. City councilors also pay taxes. So when they up everything, they got to pay them too. So I don't know if they even know that, because the way they do it, you'd think they're immune from it, but they pay for gas and everything else. So, Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so you'd think they'd be a little bit more careful with our money, which is also their money. But the one thing I wanted to say, we got to get out of here. It's 5 after. But the one thing I wanted to ask you
Yeah.
is that do you think that council should pass a bylaw where they can't come in with anything but a balanced budget, and if they want to up the amount of money that they spend every year, then it has to be a unanimous vote of city council to up the ceiling on the budget. So this year, say 150 million. Let's say use the number 150 million, 50 million capital budget. Next year they got to come in at that. They cannot raise the budget. They have to find efficiencies. They're going to be forced to work within their means, to live within their means. And if they want to up it for some reason, I don't care if it's inflation or whatever they're talking about, then it has to be a unanimous vote of council. Do you think that would be a good idea, or is it even legal? I don't even know if it's legal.
I don't think it'll never happen. It'll never happen. It's a good thought, and I would love to live in the world where you think,
I live in this world.
but I can't see that ever happening. Never.
I just want a way to force them to tighten their belts and live within their means, not just get $8 million more this year and then spend 15 million more. I mean,
Well, I think along the lines of your idea happening, it might be more successful if you just had new counselors who thought differently. I'm sorry to say that, but that's how you get it.
yeah. And my closing line would be, I can't wait for 2026.
Yeah.
And Joedy will be running. Are you going to run? Can we get a news flash here, or a news break?
No one ever says that they're running for council, and I'm not sure if you're allowed to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think some of the election laws are that you're not supposed to campaign. And perhaps if you say you're going to run for council, you're campaigning before the election, and you might get in trouble for that.
So I can't say I'm going to run for mayor?
Well, I'm just saying I can't say that.
Yeah, because I'm not. So I'll guarantee you, I could never be mayor because I would get up there and I'd be yelling and screaming. I'd lose my mind, and then they'd throw me out. Joedy would be doing integrity commission reports on me every week.
Mhm.
It'd be terrible.
Hey,
It'd be terrible.
I know you're pressed for time, but can I just mention Councillor Campbell?
Yes, you can. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Moose. Yeah.
He came up. An issue came up on the budget meeting where they popped in that old resolution or whatever they call it to extend his absence of leave, and I just wanted to kind of educate everybody on what happened there. Okay.
Yeah, that's a great question for everybody.
He missed every council meeting in 3 consecutive months.
Yes.
Okay, and that was the last opportunity, official meeting, for them to pass that resolution saying that we give him permission to do that, or else at the end of this month his seat would have been vacant.
Oh.
So that's why they did it. In the Municipal Act, under
Okay.
how can a councillor become vacant, absent for 3 consecutive meetings, that makes your seat vacant. So if they didn't do that at the end of this month,
He would have been gone.
lost a seat. And ironically, even though I've had some misgivings with Councillor Campbell, he's one of my favorite councillors. The way he just does things, like it's very, very entertaining to me, at least for my personality. It's entertaining to have him on council, and I kept track of all those dates. Right, I was aware that that's what was happening, and there was no benefit for me to have him not on council because the next one would have been Vince Carriol. Okay, and had I been allowed to speak there, I was going to try and interject and say, "Hey guys, you need to deal with this right away, or else you're going to lose a councillor."
Yeah. Well, I don't think that Vince would come back.
I don't think so either. He's next on the list.
He's next on the list,
but I don't think he'll come back.
And if he didn't come back, and I don't think he would, Dan Moody would be the next guy.
Well, actually, I think the next guy should be the one who's been most active at city council, and that would be
Joedy Burdette.
Oh, I didn't say that. I just said the next, the one who's been at almost every single council meeting.
Well, you know what?
All the letters and.
But you know what? They could appoint you to sit in for the next 2 years.
Oh,
they don't have to take the next guy on the list. That's just a tradition.
Yeah.
But they don't have to. They can pick anybody they want to sit there.
Of course they could. They could.
Yeah. So
that
there you go. Are you listening? Joedy Burdette's available.
Well, yeah, and the one thing that crosses my mind when I hear that is that there was a Stargate episode where the leader was going to get promoted, and he said, I don't know if I want to be the leader because all this time I've been sticking it to the man. If I get promoted, I'll be the man,
Yeah.
right? I'll be bound by a code of conduct. It's like, oh my goodness, I wouldn't be able to act the way I'm acting right now as a resident. I have quite a bit of freedom to do things. But,
yeah, you wouldn't be on council. You would.
Yes.
You'd have to really.
But I won't dismiss the fact that yes, I am available.
Yeah. Anyway, on that note, I guess we got to vote for Joedy if it becomes open. But all my best to Moose. I've called Wayne Campbell. I've known him for years and years, and we always called him Moose, right? So that nickname goes back a long way with me and Wayne. And I always liked the guy. He's a little bit, he can be a little bit gruff sometimes at times, and that kind of thing. And like you say, but at the end of the day, I like Moose. He's a good guy. He's done a lot for the city. I mean, he's been there forever, and I wish him well. I hope whatever he's can recover from, and continue on. God bless you, Moose. We love you.
Oh yeah. No, I hope he I think it's cancer, right? Stage 4 cancer.
Yeah, something bad.
I hope he pulls through it and just passes away from old age and not some medical issue.
Yeah. Ah, poor Moose. Yep, we miss Moose. Miss the Moose. Anyway, my name is Paul Lemire. This is Your City, Your Voice, coming to you live from downtown Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada. In the studios of 4680Q. I'm here with Joedy Burdette. Thank you for coming in, Joedy.
Glad to be here.
It's been a pleasure to have you in. We'll get you in again, of course, because there's always something going on with City Council. And Jody's right there keeping an eye on these guys for us. Have a great day, everybody. Don't forget to support my sponsors, Wild Bill's Auto Repair and Body Shop, Pete's Pizza on Victoria Avenue, and Hamill Machine Company. Thank you very much. We appreciate your support. Support our sponsors. They support the show. Have a great day, everybody. Stay out of the wind. It's going to be 70-mile-an-hour gusts up here. Stay away from the wind. Be safe. God bless you all. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Your City, Your Voice, Trash Talking Tuesday. And I've got a lot of trash to talk from the weekend. Believe me. Take care. Ciao, ciao.